What's one rule that your school or workplace has implemented that absolutely backfired? Story number 1. Not me, but my friend's old place. My friend was one to show up half hour early before work and was a commission-based salesman with a salary, just like the other salesmen, who would always show up barely on time to hours late. Friday night comes along and management decides to hold a meeting to announce the new policy. If you're late, you go home for the day, and if you're late 3 days a month, you're fired. The weekend goes by and everyone is on time. During the week, a few people call out sick right as the store opens. The weekend is coming up and my buddy is scheduled for Saturday, but not Sunday or Monday, and he's going to Disneyland with his wife, who has Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. Friday night, he packs his wife's car. Saturday comes along and he's in the parking lot a half hour early. He pops in his favorite cassette, fires up a joint, and proceeds to hotbox his car. He walks in 5 minutes late, reeking of pot, looks at the clock, and then to his boss in front of the whole sales floor, and loudly says, "Oops, I'm late. I guess I need to go home," with a shit-eating grin on his face. The bosses started backpedaling the policy and started to tell him it wasn't for him and that they'd let it slide. He loudly stated that it wouldn't be fair if they made an exception for him and that he would see them Tuesday. When he got back to work on Tuesday, the policy was gone. The same company years later hired some absolute genius of an accountant who sold the idea to management that employees were making more than management, and that they should go from commission to salary. All the top salesmen jumped ship ASAP. The remaining bottom feeders got a raise. Compared to the normal salary and commission, they didn't have to do shit all day to get it. Less than a year later, they shut their doors for the last time. Story 2. Work instituted a point system for being late or calling off sick. Accrue too many points and you get written up and fired if it continues. They doled out the same number of points whether someone was a minute late or called off altogether. And if an absence lasted up to 5 days, it was still only one absence. So anyone who overslept or encountered heavy traffic and was running late would just stay home for the rest of the week. After several months, they decided that being late was only worth half a point. Story 3. My friend worked as a technician at a place that did the installation for telecom, sound, cable, and pretty much anything tech-related really. The techs were paid by work order completion. Each job had a value that got paid out when you finished the work order. The experienced techs could finish more jobs in a day and made some seriously good money. They were motivated to work fast to get more jobs done, but also to do it correctly because having to go back within a certain time window and fix a problem didn't pay out, so it lost money. Well, some new management came in and decided to change everyone to hourly wages. Their idea was to make techs focus on getting the job done right and not rushing it. All the really good techs saw a massive pay cut from it and immediately quit. The rest of the techs suddenly had no reason to finish jobs quickly since you got paid the same whether you did 2 installs or 10 installs in one day. So everyone just started slacking off. Within a few weeks, the orders were backed up so bad, install dates were pushed out for a month or more. And when people finally did get their stuff installed, it took all day instead of a couple of hours. That one change completely fucked over the company. Story 4. It was actually my rule. When I was managing a store, my rule was that the closer had to do all the closing work and mark the checklist, and I would check it the following morning. However, I put a loophole in. If you close tonight and open tomorrow, you can come in early the following morning. I was really the only one who closed and then opened the following morning. And I knew that on many of those days, I worked 10 hours with non-stop managerial work. So instead of staying late to clean, I like to come in early and do it in the sunlight. Well, one day I followed my rule. And the next morning I woke up sick and had to call an employee to cover. He showed up to a dirty store, opted not to clean, and then got written up when the owner made a surprise visit. I didn't close it, so it wasn't my job. And the owner said, "You work here, and the store's dirty, so it is your job." I then had to go tell the owner that it was my fault, and he still responded, "Regardless of what you did or didn't do, he came into a dirty store and did not clean it. That's not acceptable." I removed my rule change and just made it mandatory to clean before leaving. Lol. Story 5. In college, after my freshman year, they decided on a new rule set to enforce a meal plan because students just weren't signing up for them and students were renting small houses nearby. Therefore, you're not allowed to move off campus unless your home is within 30 minutes of campus. You have to have a meal plan while living on campus. Our food was god-awful bad. I researched into why it was so bad and it turns out it was by Sodexo. Half the time all the food was so horrid that we couldn't stomach it and the other half was just bad but stomachable. Know what happened? Students had meal plans, but they didn't eat. They went out and bought their own groceries to bring them back to their rooms. The school realized it was wasting tons of food because it was preparing it and nobody was eating it, so it tried to shame the students by showing us how much was wasted every week. Some students decided to respond by putting a sign on the administration's door saying, "Food won't be wasted if you give us some actual damn food we can eat." Another big one was when they implemented the housing lottery for our campus. Originally, it was on a first-come, first-served basis. The administration got pissed because people started camping out in front of the area the night before, so the ones who really wanted certain roommates could make sure they were there bright and early. So the random lottery system comes in, and we were told we couldn't change a decision at all until a month after the next year started. Everyone just made swaps in their own and told the administration afterward. The administration got pissed and said they needed to move back to their original rooms, and most everyone said, "No, so if you need me, here I am at this location." I swapped with this person so I and my friend or friends could room together as we wanted. I was gone by this one, but the school had a very rare type of semester schedule that made us stand apart from everyone else. We were a block schedule. A new president came in and she decided that we needed to get off that and instead go to a weird hybrid system that just sounded more convoluted than going to a normal semester system. Turns out the faculty and students hated that idea in ridiculous amounts, and it showed in a campus-wide vote on it where the results were published. New president decided to force it to change by saying that the faculty had influenced the student body that it was inconvenient for them, and therefore the votes of almost everyone who didn't like it didn't count. A massive amount of professors retired at the end of that year in response. Edit. Just to also say this, believe it or not, I loved my time there. The professors and students were great. Just stupid admin decisions made some bad running experiences. It also changed so much in the past 5 years that I can't even say if all these problems still exist now. I hope not. And since I've had so many questions, this was Tusculum College in Eastern Tennessee. I was there circa 2006 to 2009 before I transferred to a place that had a better degree for my major. Story 6. Any support call lasting longer than 25 minutes must be reported to higher-ups for review. For example, if you have too many, no matter if it's your fault or not, you get a disciplinary review. I implemented the rule of politely hanging up on a customer for as close to 25 minutes as you can and calling them right back. "I'm sorry, I'm experiencing a small issue with my phone. Is it okay if I call you right back?" Gotcha. Outgoing calls are not reported or recorded. It's amazing. Story 7. I worked somewhere that had an incentive program for top-earning departments. They announced in advance that they were discontinuing it, and everyone, while not thrilled, was okay with it, because it was only a small sect of eligible employees, and they kind of knew it was bullshit, because no one else in the organization was eligible. Come to the month it was supposed to go away, they accidentally issued every employee another bonus. They weren't giant bonuses of $300 to $500. They immediately announced that they were going to pull them back for the next 3 paychecks, taking 40% of the bonuses back each check. Our entire department quit, just walked. What's funny is that, in a similar result to your situation, the departments across the company who were underperforming, they didn't get the bonus, so none of them quit. They lost their best performers over what equated to about $2,000 per location that bonused. Story 8. Because of rumors of a drug problem in the school, there was one, the administration decided to drug test students. The media jumped all over that, a violation of our civil rights or something. The initial statement was that anyone who failed the test would be kicked out of school. After the 40th or so kids failed, they changed the policy to mandatory meetings with the counselor. After the 100th kid failed, they hired another counselor. Story 9. We used to be allowed to stream music, etc. on our computers. Spotify was an approved program and would come installed in your computer. Someone complained about productivity despite us always doing our work, and so they banned streaming of any kind on our computers. But now everyone just listens on their phones, so you walk around the office and nearly everyone has their phone out now, so it looks even worse when sponsors come into the office. Story 10. My high school banned girls from wearing any shirt that exposed their bra straps because seeing a bra strap would give high school boys quote-unquote evil thoughts. Most of the girls in school responded by wearing the same shirts they'd always worn, without bras. As a teenage boy, it was a happy couple week. The school tried to then mandate that all female students wear bras, until a male teacher asked a 15-year-old if she was wearing appropriate undergarments or not. She called him a pervert. Her parents, who thought the whole dress code thing was as stupid as most of the students, threatened a sexual harassment suit against the school. Everybody in charge panicked, and it all went back to the way it was before they tried to change anything. Story 11. Lawndale R14 School in Lawndale, MO. The late 80s, early 90s. Our fairly small rural school went from K through 8, so we split lunchtimes in our gym or cafeteria. For some reason, our school actually invested in a noise control system because we could be quite loud during lunch, and I guess the teachers got tired of trying to keep us kids quiet-ish and eat. This new piece of equipment was mounted high on the wall and looked exactly like a stoplight. When it was green, we were free to talk. If it became yellow, we were to be careful of how much noise we made. If it turned red, it would buzz loud, like when the game clock runs out at a basketball game. Installing this thing almost immediately had the opposite effect they desired. It became a game to us. We would only get quiet to make it go back to green, then as a large group we would progressively get louder. We would stall it out at yellow before surging our collective voices to make it hit red and buzz, at which time we would all cheer, laugh, and get quiet again to reset it to green. Good times. Story 12. I was told this story when I was in the army by a parachute rigger. The workday in the army is from 9 to 4:30. Riggers packing troops chutes had a daily quota of 35 chutes. Once they got good at it, these guys could be done by 2:30, which is a very nice workday indeed. Well, they got this new captain who decided that since these guys are getting 35 done by 2:30, then obviously making them work until 4:30 would increase output even more. So of course that unit's number went way down, and the 35 and you're done for the day was quickly reinstated. Story 13. Programmer here. Management implemented an agile work tracking system that measured programmers by the number of feature requests they completed. We quickly figured out how to game that system by breaking everything down into the maximum number of feature requests we could imagine. We'd make separate feature stories for make the new button, make blue button, make button respond when clicked, make a new page for the new report, run business logic to get results, display results in a grid, set font for grid, make grid sortable, make back button return to previous page. We became great at dividing a one-day task into 20 one-hour tasks. Management loved it. Our team looked 20 times as productive and became an example to show off our process as the best performing team, despite producing far less actual work and more useless form filling. Story 14. A few years ago, we weren't allowed to stand in groups bigger than 4 at our school because this old teacher told us it was gang behavior and encouraging gang violence. One day, my entire year of like 100 plus people got into a massive group screaming, "Gang, gang!" and throwing gang signs on our school field, so they had to bring every single teacher out to try and split us apart for a straight 20 minutes. Best school day ever. Story 15. Had a fellow at my old place of work that was promoted to sales manager. Within a few days, he drafts a document that he tries to get all of us to sign, basically stating that we aren't working to our full potential and that to make profits soar, we would have to work even when we weren't working, also known as taking calls from customers no matter the day or time. This resulted in an almost immediate revolt and about 10 plus people bypassing him directly and going right to the owner. He was demoted and then later fired within a week. Story 16. All printers were defaulted to print two-sided and you were unable to disable that feature. The thought process was that this would reduce paper waste by literally cutting consumption in half, prevent people from printing out personal crap on work printers. This was decided by a committee of people, primarily from HR, who were tasked by the CEO to find ways to reduce costs and improve our corporate culture. To improve our culture, we basically decided that we'd be cunts about work printers and then we'd all sing together and have a Coke. What ended up happening instead was that corporate finance shit a brick, because you can't or shouldn't print financials double-sided, and the IRS doesn't take too kindly to getting fillings delivered to them in that fashion. Reverse the policy? Nope. Just force areas to add blank pages into documents so that we'd trick the printers. HR then implemented their new Gestapo program where you were rewarded for turning in anyone who was doing personal business on work computers or work printers. The problem was that a stunning amount of personal business was actually stuff like employee benefit stuff, filling out insurance forms, submitting flex pay receipts, scanning your transcripts for our tuition assistance program, etc. While the VP of HR decided to go full-on thundercunt and say that employee benefit stuff wasn't work-related and needed to be done at home on your personal PC, our freaking chief legal officer came down as our voice of moral reasoning to say that was bullshit, and only then did some of the stupidity unfold. The printer thing was done officially once the CAO and CFO started getting double-sided financials. When they complained, their underlings gave them time studies to show the financial cost of having highly paid CPAs do shit like insert blank pages to trick printers instead of, doing accounting and stuff. Story 17. Our process integrity people decided every international order over $100,000 needed to be approved by a manager at the purchase requisition stage before the sales order could be processed. The problem? Purchase requisitions are only generated after the sales order was completed. This meant it was impossible to complete any international order worth more than $100,000, and they launched this policy unannounced 2 days before Christmas. I ended up staying in the office until 9 at night trying to get our data people to create a way for me to order $300,000 in parts from Sweden before the holidays. Story 18. When my school moved to a newly built site, they also tried to establish a new rule set for a new generation or something. The first one, because they loved their fancy new building so much, was that nobody was allowed to leave the building until the end of the school day, including breaks. The front door would literally be locked unless there was a fire alarm. Suffice to say, either nobody turned up or a lot of fire alarms were pulled before the rule was thrown away. There were also military-style uniform inspections at random throughout the day. They looked to us, I was in 6th form, to set the example for the kids. However, they were so overzealous and dictatorial that it became comical, and we all very quickly stopped caring and told them to send us home or get lost and stop treating us like trash. There were more stupid rules like this, but our first group of 6th form ended up tearing them all down in a couple of months. Story 19. When I was in 8th grade, my school implemented a new iPad program. We were recognized as an Apple certified school or some bullshit like that. The problem was that students were just using them to play games. The administration didn't have any way to crack down on it, and teachers had no clue how to implement it in the classroom. We constantly played 2048 in class, since they couldn't block all the different iterations for it, and when they made it an instant demerit to be found playing it, even in lunch and homeroom, we just switched over to browser Tetris. It was so bad that one kid who sat right next to me didn't even try to focus on school. He would spend the entire period playing on his iPad, then constantly complain that he kept scoring 50s and 60s on his tests. Story 20. My middle school tried to prohibit students from bringing backpacks into class. You could bring a purse, bag, etc., however, just not a backpack. They wanted students to either stop by their locker before every class period, impossible without being late, or carry a large stack of heavy textbooks around all day. Due to the latter reason, the rule got cancelled within a week. This was in 1998 or 99, so I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve with this rule. Story 21. A nursing home in our area thought it would be a great idea to bring back the traditional white nursing caps. They made it mandatory for all female nurses to wear during their shifts or be written up, and eventually pointing themselves out. Male nurses were not included. About half of the staff quit within the first 2 weeks, and several started working at my facility. The others that stayed said that the residents and families of residents laughed and made fun of the nurses constantly. Pretty degrading and sexist comments. Basically, about 3 months after this all went down, someone from corporate came in and fired all the directors who implemented the uniform change, and everything went back to normal. Several nurses stayed with my company, but a few went back when the rules changed. Story 22. One of the top managers from my work decided that everyone who's worked there for 7+ years had to do a special online training course that consisted of 2 400+ page volumes of leadership training followed by a 20 or 25 question test for each volume. You were expected to complete this within 1 year of being automatically signed up for the course. Failure to pass the tests or to complete the course by the end of that year rendered you ineligible for promotions and almost guaranteed to be laid off within a year. So many people tried to take the guaranteed severance package option by not doing the course, that they had to change the rule that you wouldn't get laid off or not promoted, but you still had to do the course. People still didn't do it. That guy finally left shortly after a new guy replaced him and probably chucked that course and the whole idea of it into the garbage. Story 23. Way back in the days of the 20th century, I worked as a government inspector in one of the larger US states. This was before the advent of government employee unions. Each fiscal year, the personnel department would come up with proposals for reimbursing employees for official travel, discuss it with an employee association, and send it to the state legislature for rubber stamping. One year, someone came up with a bright idea that travel reimbursement should cover more than overnight trips. Employees who were required to travel more than 25 miles from their headquarters should get a lunch allowance. I guess that no one looked hard at the proposal, and those that did were thinking of staff who went to occasional meetings, not people who were on the road every day. Well, my agency had the state divided up into districts. Inspectors in the districts were on the road almost daily. In my case, it was a combination of overnight and day trips. It was pretty common to be more than 25 miles away from my office, and my colleagues and I discovered that it was easy to change pretty common to almost always. Multiply that by not only my own agency staff, but staff in every other agency that did fieldwork. We cleaned up on the lunch allowances. The state budget for employee travel was completely blown before the year was half over. And as soon as legally possible, the rule was changed to cover only specific emergency conditions.